Welcome, fans, to the 97th edition of Changeover Chat presented by Sportmaster Sports Surfaces. I'm your host, Randy Master. Today's guest is one of the most successful women's collegiate tennis coaches in history, recently becoming one of only 4 women's coaches ever to reach 700 career wins. Under his guidance, the University of North Carolina Tar Heels have captured 6 ITA National Indoor Championships, 6 ACC team titles, and have reached the NCAA quarters 11 times, the semis 4 times, and the NCAA championship match once. Our guest is in his 19th season as head coach in Chapel Hill and spent 11 successful years at the helm at William & Mary before moving to Carolina in 2003. Our guest was a 4-year starter at the University of Notre Dame, where he was a team captain and was named MVP for the Fighting Irish. All of this despite having what Mark Bay recently described to me as a very mediocre forehand. We can talk about that later. His Tar Heels currently sit atop both the ACC and the national rankings with a 23-1 record. Please welcome to the show North Carolina women's head coach, Brian Kalbas.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate that Mark Bay comment. That was awesome.
Well, anytime in the show you want to get back at Mark, he's going to be working with us during the NCAA, so you're going to have your chances either here or in person. I can tell you that.
Well, I think despite my mediocre forehand, I did get the W over Mark in college, so I'll take that W over my mediocre forehand.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he didn't mention that. So before Coach, we get into your team and your coaching, I want to talk about a colleague of yours at North Carolina, and that's a guy named head basketball coach Hubert Davis. I'm sure you know Mr. Davis pretty well. He's had a lot of success of late. It's been incredible what he's done with the run to the title game against Kansas. Now, I don't know if people on this show that listen to this show care that much about college basketball. Some do. I personally do myself. Now, the thing I wanted to talk to you, Brian, about your colleague is it's interesting. That team that Hubert brought to the national championship and almost won it, that was a team that was really on the bubble for most of the season. And even at the beginning of March, it was, last 4 in, first 4 out. You didn't know what Carolina had in store for the postseason. Now, a month after those projections, having them on the bubble, they end up almost winning the national championship. Now, as a coach, Coach Kalbas, what can you tell your players about what Coach Davis did with that team, taking a team that people didn't even think they could make it to the NCAA tournament, much less win it? What can you tell your team about that run and how much momentum matters and confidence matters as you get to the end of the regular season?
Yeah, that's a great parallel correlation. Hubert is a good, just a good friend of our program. He's supported us in many ways, and he's been on the staff with Roy Williams for many years. Obviously, what you kind of look at is, at the beginning of the year, he put a picture of the Final Four, New Orleans Superdome, in every one of the players' locker room. So he instilled that, hey, this is where our dream is. This is where our goal is. We're preparing for, and he instilled that belief and that mentality from the very beginning. Even though they had kind of a really unproven team, they had a couple of grad transfers. They had guys that really hadn't established themselves as top echelon college players, and really hadn't developed their culture yet. So you could see them. They were very, very inconsistent throughout the year. They played a lot of tough teams, and they were not even close. They were losing 20, 25, 30 points and getting blown out. Mid-February, they lost to Pittsburgh at home, and I guess they had a players-only meeting, and I think at that point in time, everybody was writing them off. And again, his speech, his mentality, he was, instead of kind of kicking them when they're down or yelling at them or he continued to be positive and patient and keep preaching that our time's going to come. And you could see, just like Roy Williams' teams, they always got better in March and April, and during that championship time frame. And you could tell when I was actually courtside at the Syracuse game. It was the last home game, And you could see, I mean, that game was gigantic. I mean, Love hit a huge shot. Yeah, they got some stops. I get the one guy from Syracuse had a career game. He had like 30, 35 points. And so if they don't win that game, they don't get in the tournament. But to me, you could tell that they were building momentum. And that game, by winning that game at home, okay, on senior day, enabled them to have the belief and confidence to go win at Cameron. And then that win at Cameron allowed them to think, you know what, hey, we have a chance to win the ACC tournament. And obviously Virginia Tech had a great run. They won the whole thing, but you could tell Carolina was still playing really, really well. And then everybody was like, okay, this is the hottest team in the country, and they're the eighth seed. Everyone's predicted them to beat Baylor, and they did beat Baylor, but they almost lost to Baylor. And they just got on such a massive run with beating UCLA, and then obviously beating a hot team in St. Peter's, and then obviously beating Duke. But you could tell. I think to me, what I learned from Hubert telling my team is that just be patient. Culture is worth more than anything. And Hubert was trying to do things the right way, even though he was slow, okay, at the beginning of trying to build putting his own imprint on it. He changed things around. I think, there's a lot, to learn and grow and instill, from our program into what he's done with his program. And it's really impressive to see what they were able to do.
So, Brian, just sticking on college basketball, because I can tell you're just as passionate as me about the college game. I've got Michael Jordan back here when he hit the winning shot against Georgetown in 1982. So I am a huge fan. Just today or yesterday, I saw that Armando Bacot was going to return to Carolina next season. And with all of the transfer portal talk and players going in the lottery pick and everything but players coming back that are that good, it was pretty refreshing. And again, making the parallel to tennis, Hubert has created that culture where a player like Armando wants to come back. Leaky Black wants to come back. How do you create that culture where Armando could go and make millions and millions and millions of dollars next year, but he wants to go back and play at Carolina? How does that make you feel as a Carolina Tar Heel and just as a coach, that when you see a player that loves playing there so much?
Carolina is a special place. I mean, it's such a special place. I think it's really amazing. It's tough to recruit the players to come here because they have so many choices. But once they come here, it's hard for them to leave. We had 3 girls last year, 3 super seniors were given an extra year, and they all were national champions in different respects. Sarah Davatilla was a Honda Award winner. McKenna Jones won the NCAA doubles. Alexa Graham won ITA Fall Nationals. They all chose to use a 5th year to come back. Alexa Graham was only going to come here 1 year and turn pro. And you look at Armando and Leaky and those players, they love Carolina. I mean, the culture that Roy Williams and Hubert, that's why Roy wanted Hubert to be the coach, because he knows the kind of person he is. It's always about the person over the player. Yeah. And they know that the dollar is the pro, that lifestyle, when it's going to be about individual more than the team, that special nature. Back in 2016 when Carolina lost at the buzzer to Villanova, it was devastating, and all those guys want to have a chance to come back, and they came back and won it in 2017. So I think Bacot and Leaky and any others that want to do that have a chance to make to make something, do something special. Which you in college, pros always going to be there. In college, you're only in college 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 years, and it's a most special time of your life. So you want to make the most of it.
Yeah, well, you've made the most of it as a player and also as a coach. Now, you're the 3rd coach that I've had on the show. I've had now Brian Shelton and Manny Diaz have also been on the show. No slouches themselves, for sure. Now, I wanted to talk about some of the things I talked to them about. Now, as far as how they got into coaching. Now, Brian Shelton obviously was a great player at Georgia Tech, went to play on tour, coach for the USTA, and then connected back with Kenny Thorne, and he ended up at Georgia Tech, and the rest is history. Goes on to Florida, and he wins a national championship last year. Coach Diaz, great player at University of Georgia under Dan McGill, becomes an assistant, becomes the head coach. The rest is history. Now, it seems like in looking at your path, Brian, more similar to, or on the way to being more similar to what Coach Diaz did. He played at Georgia and then became an assistant there. Now, is that how it started with you with Coach Bobby Bayless? I know you didn't play for Coach Bayless all 4 years, but was he your impetus for getting into coaching?
100%. I had a tumultuous or transitional high school year, where I went to 3 different high schools in my 4 years in 3 different cities. So I turned down scholarship offers to go to a place that I knew that I would love the place, regardless of the tennis. Back then, Notre Dame, was a dream of mine. My dad went there. I knew it was a great school. It was a great academic institution. I knew the campus was beautiful, but the tennis was not very good at the time. We had Tom Fallon was the coach. He has since passed away, but he had been there for 35 years, and he was in his 70s. And I never really had a coach, at the time, so I didn't really factor in that in the recruiting piece. So when I chose a school, I was very self-motivated. I was my own coach. Everything I accomplished in my tennis career was basically what I had accomplished. So, and what Tom Fallon did was he had everybody on the team in the fall play challenge matches against everybody. And then that ladder ended up going towards scholarship money towards the second semester. So, my freshman year, they brought in 4, highly nationally ranked players. And I was fortunate enough to get the number 1 spot after my freshman year, fall semester, and I was given a half scholarship. But playing against your teammates for money was very difficult, and it really had a combative nature to our team, and we didn't have great team culture. So Bobby came in my junior year. We had a brand new tennis center. The Eck Tennis Center was built that year. We had a new AD. Everything changed around. Bobby gave me a full scholarship and kind of invested in me up front and said things are going to be different, and they were. My junior year, there was the number 1 player in the nation and coming, being recruitable. Bobby was recruiting him. I hosted him, and I was good friends with him. His name was David DeLucia, and I really wanted David to come because I saw how the program was changing around. So I hosted David. David ended up coming to Notre Dame, and so now I played number 1 my first 3 years, and my senior year, David ended up playing 1 ahead of me, which I thought was amazing because I wanted to be on a really good team. And so then I saw how dynamic our team was. And my senior year, this is no lie, Randy, but I hosted 67 recruits my senior year.
Yeah.
Okay. And of those 67, 11 of those guys in the top 100 ended up coming to Notre Dame as freshmen after David, so that kind of started the whole ball rolling. And Bobby saw how invested I was, and we'd never had an assistant position, before. So he offered that to me, and I jumped at it. I was only making $8,000, but I thought I was making 6 figures because it was a dream. It was a passion. I loved it. I felt like I got cheated out of 4 incredible college years, and so that started my coaching career with Bobby. And then those 11 guys, and when David was a senior, that's when we got to the NCAA finals at Georgia. We had that run. We had an incredible run.
Yeah.
Beat Mississippi State, beat Georgia, beat the undefeated Southern Cal, and then lost to Stanford in the finals. But it was all because of Bobby giving me the platform to showing how much he developed my game. Because when I was a player, I never really had a coach. He worked on my game. I never had a coach that worked on my game. And when I was at Notre Dame, one of my big wins was I had a win over Todd Martin, when he was at Northwestern. So there are things that would never have accomplished if it wasn't for Bobby's ability to develop my game. And then when I was coaching with him, just to develop amazing players like Chuck Coleman and Will Forsythe and Mark Schmidt, and obviously working with David, and there's just so many players that it was an amazing opportunity for me to coach with Bobby and see how great of a coach he was, and it really helped me become the coach I am today.
Yeah, and coaches like you that have had, and Bobby, and the Dick Goulds of the world, and Manny, and Gino Auriemma, that have success at one place for long periods of time, ultimately are just, they're great, great recruiters, and they've developed a culture that they know how to recruit into. And I talked a lot about that with Coach Shelton. I talked a lot about that with Coach Diaz, just, creating that culture and bringing in players that fit your culture and your program. And it's fascinating to me to listen to those guys, especially Brian, just talk about, I can remember he was just saying the team. That's it. Now, I'm assuming you've had, that type of success, and all these guys, and I'm sure they take things from you and you take things from them. Now, when it comes to that North Carolina culture and recruiting into that culture, Brian, so let's just say, for instance, you have 5 players right now you're interested in, incredibly talented players, different parts of the country, and on paper, they all look about the same. You're going to go visit each one as soon as the season ends. Now, what's the number one thing that you're observing or looking for when you speak to each of these young women and their parents? What's the number one thing that you're looking for that's going to tell you immediately, I can see them with my team right now at North Carolina?
It's character. I mean, it's their work ethic, their attitude, their passion for the game. I was coaching very young at William & Mary, and I got the job when I was 25 years old. And at William & Mary, it's a great academic school. We had great facilities. 3 years after I got there, we had a brand new indoor facility, thanks to Mark McCormick, and his generosity. But we had to develop players there. We also had to take some chances on some international players.
Yeah.
I sat in a room my first year at Carolina, and Dean Smith was talking to all the coaches. And one of the things he said to all the coaches, and I thought he was like staring right at me, but obviously he was talking to all the coaches, but he said, look, here at Carolina, never sacrifice character in recruiting. And that really hit home with me, because I just wanted to make sure that I started my career at Carolina in the right way, bringing in the right people who loved Carolina, loved tennis, who had a passion, and a drive to get better. And I felt that we could develop a culture, that is going to be consistent for what we are trying to do for generations. And I'm very proud of one stat, there's never been a player, a scholarship player, ever transfer out of our program. Wow. And I think everybody has graduated. We had one girl that turned pro after her sophomore year, because she won NCAAs and got an US Open main draw, but she's one semester away from graduating. And you got people like Haley Carter, who could have turned pro, did not turn pro. She ended up staying 4 years, and she Phi Beta Kappa, has the all-time winning wins list in ACC history. So, I mean, you got tremendous things and stories, but one of my very first recruits at Carolina, building on the culture theme, was I recruited Stan Smith's youngest daughter, Austin Smith, to come to Carolina. And, there's no one that has better character and better reputation than Stan Smith. So, I really wanted to start off on the right foot and make sure that we brought in the right people. And it's kind of, that's helped, get the culture right. And then obviously the success has kind of followed.
Yeah, well, it's been quite successful over your 19 years, and really the last couple of years have been incredibly successful. As I look at these win-loss records, you were 18-0 in the pandemic season, the one that ended early and you couldn't play an NCAA tournament. Last year you were 30-1, losing the national semis to Pepperdine in that tough match, and now are 23-1. And the thing about this team, Brian, a lot of people need to realize about the 23-1 North Carolina Tar Heels is that you lost from last year's team that made it to the Final Four: Sarah Davatilla, Alexa Graham, and McKenna Jones. Now, going into this season, did you think that you'd be sitting here today or last week before the Duke match? That was a tough one that could have gone either way, but you'll get a chance to play them again. But did you think you'd be sitting here talking 23-0, 23-1 after losing those 3 players? I mean, those are 3 complete stud players that you lost last year, and how proud are you of this team, and are you surprised at the success of this team?
Super proud of this team. I mean, what an amazing accomplishment. I mean, you're talking about coming up on the ACC tournament this coming weekend, and you're talking about the number 3 ranked team in the country is seeded 5 in the ACC tournament. So to go through the gamut of the ACC, winning at State, winning at Miami, winning at Florida State, and just having to do that with a team that's, again, playing out of position. Okay, you got players who've never been in the lineup before, like Annika Yarlagadou, who clinched the national leader. She's never played for us, regularly. You got, Riley Tran, who was 7 last year. She's playing 3 and been in the top 10 in the rankings. You got Fiona Crawley, who lost her first college match ever against Duke. She was 49-0 before that point in time. Now playing 4, who last year played 6. You got Elizabeth Scotty, who, she's been dealing with a lot of, she has this POTS syndrome where, the POTS syndrome, it's a syndrome for tall kind of athletic players like volleyball players, basketball players, and now, some tennis players, where it's just an immune system that you got to get, the right medication. And so for her to be able to kind of do what she's done this year, and the big one for us is Cameron Mora. I mean, Cameron Mora played 1, and she's been top 10 in the country, and for her to be 1 and have such an amazing year, taking on the best, position player. She has not had a down practice or a down match all year long. And so, it's been an incredible accomplishment. And you're asking me if I'm surprised, based on the competitiveness of this team and just the toughness and how the culture has blossomed. I'm not that surprised, honestly, but the team is really, I'm just super, super proud of what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, it's been an incredible season so far, and you're getting to the ACC tournament that you said starts this week at Georgia Tech. That's going to be unbelievably competitive, and then you will go to probably host a regional match the first week of the NCAA tournament. Now, you're obviously going to be the favorite or a favorite to win the ACC tournament, and then probably going into the national championships. Now, Brian, the one thing, and I hate to bring this up, but it's an obvious thing. When you look at your resume, you've got it goes on for pages and pages and pages. The one thing is that national title. Now, I am pretty confident you're going to get it one of these days. You're too good of a coach, even though a national title doesn't define someone's legacy. I mean, your career so far has been nothing short of outstanding. Now, where I'm going with this is, do you put a lot of pressure on yourself to get that national championship? Not just for you, for them, for all of you. Is it something that is in the back of your mind, national championship, or one match at a time, and you don't feel any extra weight because you're waiting to get that first one?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, great question, probably on everybody's mind. 2014, we were in the national championship match against UCLA and came down to the final match. And there are some things that, we were up in the final set, in the third set, and some breaks that just didn't go our way. And, you talk about a team that, was pretty stacked. I mean, Jennifer Brady was 2, and then you got Catherine Harrison, who was playing 5, who, is still on playing the tour right now. So, and then since then, and you mentioned 2018 was the last year when we lost to Duke, we lost a regular season match since, so we haven't lost a regular season match since 2018. So 2019, we lost to Georgia in the indoors, but we went through the regular season undefeated. So and then in 2020, you mentioned we were 18-0. We had won national indoors. We'd beaten everybody in the ACC that was good, beaten Duke, NC State, Virginia. So we'd already kind of proven ourselves, even though the season wasn't over, and we felt that we were by far had the best team, and we didn't get to get that done. But the problem was with 2021 was our depth was so much better than anybody's depth in 2020. But the problem with 2021, everybody was given extra scholarships in 2021 because of COVID. So our depth, if we could play 9 or 10 players, then we would have won a national title. Because if we played, 5 doubles and 10 singles, but we didn't get credit. In college tennis, you can't sub in, sub out. Your depth at 7, 8, 9, 10 doesn't help you unless you have some injuries. So, the problem we had really, in 21, okay, and maybe in 19, was that we went undefeated throughout the regular season. And I think we didn't handle the pressure going into the NCAA tournament we didn't know how to handle actual losing. And when we played Stanford in 2019, we were and they were underseeded. They were seeded 16, and they ended up winning the whole thing. And in 2021, a doubles team that won NCAAs, they were up 4-1 in a one set break. They ended up just having some bad games and lost it, and we lost a doubles point. And then Pepperdine just really outplayed us. So I think there's always that. I don't obviously my history, and I it's something that we strive for, but it's something that we're trying to accomplish. But I've said this to so many people: if we don't ever win one, it's not going to define me as a coach, because to me, I believe everybody says this is going to be your year. I believe every year is my year because I love what I do. I have a passion for it. I have incredible players that I get to coach. I have incredible assistant coaches that I get to work with. My best friend is my associate head coach, who has been, head coach for 17 years, other places at Minnesota and William Mary. He started with me at William Mary. And so there's not a day that I dread getting up. I haven't missed a day of work in my history of coaching. So I am extremely competitive, as you could probably gather, but I love coaching. I have a passion for it, just like Brian Shelton does. I know Brian well. He used to coach in the ECC with me and the women's side at Georgia Tech, and we had some just incredible battles. I miss coaching against him because he brought the best out of me, and I tried to bring out the best in him. And he's arguably one of the best people in the game. And in recruiting, we have all Americans on our team. I try and recruit the best people. Okay. So even if we don't win, okay, I have an amazing time coaching these incredible, individuals. And that's what it's all about. And the success, the wins, the conference championships, national indoor championships, it's all byproduct of just doing something that you love and a passion for it. The NCAA championship that has eluded our program for the longest time, okay, until 2013, I was there 10 years at Carolina. I felt I wasn't doing Carolina justice because we were called the University of National Championships for a reason. Basketball championships, Anson Dorrance, 22 national championships, Karen Shelton, 7 national championships, lacrosse. And so many programs had won national championships and we hadn't won one. So that was what was driving me. I wanted to make sure that Dickie Bedour, who hired me, and Bubba, who's kept me on, I wanted to prove to them, okay, and to the other coaches, that our program is just as worthy, okay, as these other programs at Carolina. And we've proven that. Okay. So I don't feel that we have to prove anything else, okay, to anybody, because I would rather have the 10, 11, 12 year dominance that we've had, the consistency. We've never fallen out of any ranking period of the top 5 since 2010. I'd rather have that than having 1 year where it's just euphoria and you win a national title and then you kind of up and down roller coaster year after year. We've been consistent and we've been successful, and we've lost players. Other players have stepped in, and it's just that brings a huge smile to my face.
Yeah. Well, you absolutely do it the right way. And everything you said, just it makes all the sense in the world, especially considering so many things and what you said about all of your players graduating that you've recruited over the last 19 years, and the fact that none of them have ever transferred. To me, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go to bed at night and you're saying, God, look at that stat, no one has ever left my program. To me, that might be more satisfying than saying, hey, we won a national title back in 2011. Would you say?
They love it here. They absolutely love it here. And it's not just, anything that our coaching staff is doing. There's so many there's so many people here at Carolina that makes this place so special. That's why Baycott, that's why Leaky Black. Okay, that's why those players are coming back. Okay, but our players, want to come back, for their, their extra years. But they also, again, every one of our scholarship players is going to and will have graduated. Okay, so that's a testament to this place, and it's a testament to Bubba Cunningham, who's given us the platform, our AD, the platform, like a Jamie Loeb. Now our players who come here, they want to turn pro, but if they turn pro and they can come back and get their education paid for, because Bubba has allowed every athlete at North Carolina that ability and that platform, because he believes in the education here at Carolina.
Yeah. Well, Brian, we are going to be looking out for you. We've got the whole NCAA tournament here in the TennisONE app. First ball to last ball, the regionals, super regionals will be at the University of Illinois. Hopefully I'll be there, or I know I'm going to be there. Hopefully I'll be there, and maybe we can hit some balls. I can see, I mean, David Caldwell put us in touch, and,
Yeah.
I'm no David Caldwell, but I'd love to hit some. Now that's a forehand. If you want to talk about a forehand. I mean,
he's a ball striker. I was a grinder. David hit. I made people miss. I frustrated people, but David is. I remember when we were coaching against him when I was at Notre Dame. He is an athlete. He's a ball striker. He's a competitor, and he's an amazing person. And he's an incredible Tar Heel.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I've got to give a shout out to my buddy Chris Mumford, who I'm sure you know. Another Richmond boy who I grew up with.
We used to go every January. We would take some players to a tournament in Las Vegas, and Chris and Joe Frierson and Brian Jones would always be. They'd have a reunion in Vegas over Martin Luther King weekend, and I'd see those guys there. What a great group of guys. Awesome.
Well, great tradition in North Carolina. And again, thanks so much for coming on the show. Good luck this week. And again, hopefully I'll see you in Champaign.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate you having me.